Hello? Hello?
Hello, Vincent. How are you?
Hi. I'm good.
Good, good.
So, I took my first ketamine treatment
Mm-hmm.
from Mind Bloom, and I didn't get high. They said sometimes you don't, and I'll probably have to increase the dose, but it did do something, and it did. I was more contemplative while I was on it, and Um, yes, I was contemplative on it and I thought of different things and it did make me think. And one of the things that I did get out of it was that I just don't want to be bothered by spirituality anymore. Um, I'm kind of jealous of people that don't think about the afterlife and don't think about these types of esoteric subjects because I feel they can focus more on this world and they don't get distracted and they don't worry and it's not like, any kind of big deal for them or anything that they think about all that much.
But isn't the problems of this world attributable to this kind of mindset of atheism and nihilism?
Well, um I did think about that and I don't know if this could work. It's kind of like a substitute for God, right? Like um people want God in their life because the world is unknown and what the world is unknown and where you're going is unknown and your life is
God is
hard.
free.
What?
I mean, you don't have to pay for, choosing to believe in God.
No, you don't have to pay, but I just think that some people can't bring themselves to just abandon reason and, say, well, I know there's a God in heaven and I know what he wants and I know what he wants for me and I know what he wants for this world. And I think some people just can't bring themselves to say that. And for those types of people, I think that it's kind of worth it to to try something like this. I do feel better a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not craving marijuana really as much. Um, and I'm gonna do the next one Wednesday. I'm gonna do it every 3 days, and I'll probably go up in the dosage. I have to see what they say, and you know, um,
But, but okay, so you're saying that you need this treatment because you don't believe in God. But if you believe in God, then you don't need this treatment and you might be permanently happier without putting yourself in danger of addiction, dependence, and, you know,
yes, but I mean, for people who just can't bring themselves, like, which God? And you're always like, why? There's no.
there's only one God. I mean, I don't even know why you pretend like, ooh, there's so many to choose from. Which shall I choose?
Well, but even in Islam, there's sects. Which sect do you
Oh,
follow?
no, no, forget about that. Don't even. Okay, you know I'm not Muslim. You know I'm not part of any sect. So you don't. I'm not saying you. Once you believe, you're off to the mosque or whatever. This is about what you're supposed to believe as somebody with a choice of stories to believe. And actually, this is the second time today that I've been talking about Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens, which is to do, I haven't read it yet, about stories and I don't know if he actually says that, people just make up a story about themselves and try to live as if it were true. So obviously they'd have to, modify their own personal story with the story of the group that they belong to. So, obviously Jews would have to think, well, do I want to follow the religion properly, or will I be a secular Jew? And even if you become a secular Jew, there are all these different kinds of Jews to be a liberal Jew, a conservative Jew, there are different kinds of synagogues to go to, a Jew who doesn't, there's so many. So we have
Well, but that's
to.
what I'm saying. But people are going to think like that because it's just when you say God, and then but you're going to want to know a little bit more than that, and then everyone has a different explanation, even the different Muslims, and that can get to the point where you're just like, well, I just don't believe in any of it because everyone has a different story and nothing adds up, and it's just it's hard to believe that. I mean, yes, I mean there are people who are like, I believe in some sort of God, but I don't know what it is, and blah blah blah, and
Okay,
like,
well,
but I
these people okay, these people are the ones who say, "Oh, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual," and that's when you really have to grab them by the throat and say, "What do you mean about spiritual? What do you actually mean when you use this airy fairy word of saying I'm spiritual?"
Well, yes. I mean, like, I guess, I don't, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it means or what the person means exactly. And it
Okay,
means
well,
to,
perhaps we can explore what you think, because when people say that, they seem to be suggesting that that it means good things, that there's something, it's nice to be spiritual,
oh,
but not
you're,
nice to be religious.
you're roboting. I don't know if that's me or if it's you. Hold on one second.
I don't know either. I hope
Oh,
it's.
now it's better now. It's better
Mhm.
now.
I'm hearing you perfectly fine. So I think what we should be exploring is really what people mean when they say I'm spiritual but not religious. Because just by the way they say it and the kind of people who say it, they're saying religion bad, spirituality good. So what is the spirituality? And well, we have discussed it ourselves. You haven't really said what it means. I have, however, defined spirituality as the desire for justice. And I wonder if you agree.
Well, maybe that's part of it. I don't think that's like the crux of it, but I mean, it could be part of it. And yes, people want people to pay for what they did in this life or be rewarded for what they did in this life. And I just I guess you could be whatever. But I don't know if I don't think it's the only or the penultimate reason why people are spiritual.
But what does it mean? We really need to define this word, because if we don't, then we might be talking at cross purposes.
Well, maybe something other than this world. I mean, whatever.
Okay, thank you for saying you are in fact talking about the afterlife. So
Well, not
so
just
so
the
when people say
afterlife.
that,
Yes, but not just the afterlife. There's more to. There's ancestors and ghosts and also getting spiritual connection in this world and getting messages, visions, omens, signs. You
not
know what I mean?
necessarily, not necessarily, because I mean, okay, if we're talking about the five world religions, they not all of them believe in heaven and hell. Two of the Eastern religions believe in reincarnation, and interestingly, some ultra Orthodox Jews also believe in reincarnation. And when you ask them, I mean, they'll say, well, there's nothing in the Torah forbidding us from thinking that. And and in terms of classifying religion, um, the one of the one of the common features of the five world religions is the idea of an afterlife. That even if you don't get punished, for evil or rewarded for good in this life, it's going to happen in your next life. So there will be justice in the end, even if it appears to you that um, wicked people um, lead a good life. So this is necessary. This is a necessary component of a religion, or at least a world religion. And when I say a world religion, I mean a religion that is relatively successful compared to the others. And I think what Yuval Harari is saying is that, obviously we would like, all of us would like good to be rewarded and evil punished. And if it can't be done in this life, we hope that it will be done in the next life. And if we believe in it, then we will be content to obey God's laws, because we will see this life as an examination hall to test our ability to distinguish in theory and in practice the difference between good and evil.
Yes, but
So, so
everyone has a different idea of what's good and evil.
Well, apparently God doesn't. He's given the seven no-height laws, and the Jews, if they were doing their job properly, would say, "Well, we know that we know we're supposed to rank the Gentile religions according to their conformity with the no-height laws, but unfortunately, they are too intellectually and morally corrupted to do what they were made God's chosen people to do." And that's why the world is in such a mess and everybody blames them.
Well, they're just, they're not willing to just give out a certification to something that's no cigar. They don't, almost doesn't count except for in horseshoes and hand grenades.
I'm
And,
sorry, I mean, what sorry, almost? What?
almost, it's an American saying, almost does not count except for in horseshoes and hand grenades. You know what I mean? Like almost just,
I
it
don't
doesn't.
know about horseshoes and hand grenades.
Well, because in horseshoes, you've never played horseshoes?
No.
Have you ever even heard of it?
Well, I think you're supposed to throw it at something and
You're supposed to
get it
throw a
in.
horseshoe at a stake and try to get the horseshoe to go around the stake. But
Yes.
whoever gets the horseshoe closest wins. It counts. In horseshoes, almost counts. And in hand grenades, if you throw a hand grenade and it almost hits someone, it counts, because it blows up and the person gets blown up even if it didn't hit their body immediately. You know what I mean? And so, but almost doesn't count. Islam is almost but no cigar. It's a day late and a dollar
Who
short.
are they to say? Who are they to say?
Well, because they're the ones who created the Noahide laws, and they're the ones.
Yeah,
Well,
but we know why they won't do it.
well, no, because they're
It's
not
not for a
going.
good reason, is what
Well,
I'm
what about
saying.
that? What about that rabbi who does say it? That rabbi, that whatever his name was, church something. That rabbi, I sent you the article where he said, Muslims don't need to abandon Islam, um, which is not
Yes.
which is not really true. And they're they're doing what you want them to do, but they're not really being true to their principles if they're saying that, because Maimonides said it's illegal to practice Islam.
Okay, so his name is Uri Herky, I think. Uri Herky, spelt Cherki. He's one of the Muslim-friendly rabbis of Israel. And I'm saying, actually, they're just not doing what they were supposed to do because they hate Muslims and they don't want to open a whole can of worms, because people will say, well, why didn't you say that earlier? And so they're just hoping that people are going to continue ignoring me, and eventually I'll fade away and leave them alone. But I mean, that's not my intention, because it's and I don't even have to do that because people are asking questions. That's why there was this Muslim website popped up to say that secular Quranism is not legitimate. But then I don't need their approval. What I need is for people to get it into their heads that bad stuff is going to happen to them if they don't repent. And the people I'm addressing in particular are white people whose religion is Christo-liberalism. I mean, I say it in that way because I know the problem with white people is they don't believe in either. And they've already tried nationalism, they've already tried socialism, and it hasn't worked. So I'm saying, well, it's obvious what you have to do now,
Well,
except that
Islam
you
is not a
won't.
paradise. Islam is not some paradise that everyone wants to run into. You know what I mean? And like,
No,
it's
nobody's promising paradise. It's saying
okay. Well, I think
you
most
have the
people.
possibility of improving your lives.
Well, I just, maybe that's not enough. Maybe, people are looking for
Beggars can't
something.
be choosers.
Yes, they can. Well, you can. It's not like it's an idea. Anyone can make up an idea. It's not like you're begging for money. It's just any person on the earth can say, "Hey, let's try this," or "Hey, let's
Okay,
try
yes,
that."
and they've tried it. We have
Well, they
these
haven't tried everything. They
Christian
haven't.
nationalists who want to abolish the First Amendment because that is what it really means. Except they don't even know that that is what it means. I think they want to abolish the First Amendment. How happy would you be if the Christian nationalists get their way and abolish the First Amendment?
Well, well, who knows? Like I don't know if that's what they really mean, or I
Well, we don't
understand.
know what they really mean because they're stupid. I've tried to talk to a few of them, and they're not going to be. They don't want to discuss a Trinity with me. You see, they don't get it. They don't understand their own history. And and to be fair to white people, they haven't really studied the burnt and bloody history of Christianity because I guess they haven't been taught that at school because the government didn't want them to not be Christian. Do you see? Do you see why it might not have been taught to them properly, deliberately? I mean,
Yes, of
lots of
course.
things are great. So, and there's also a reason why Muslims are so stupid about the Quran. They don't read it either, and their government doesn't encourage them. And the reason why they don't encourage them is that if you read the Quran and you know it, you will know your rights. And these governments don't want these Muslims in their country to know their rights. So they just say, oh, it's enough to intone the words of the Quran in Arabic and look like you've got toothache without knowing the actual meaning of the words. They learn it in a really retarded way. And yeah, so most Muslims haven't read the Quran from beginning to end. But I also know that most Jews haven't read the Tanakh from beginning to end, and I know most Christians haven't read the Bible from beginning to end. But the point is, it all centers on idolatry because everybody knows about, what happened to the Jews when they worshipped the golden calf. They also know about the Ten Commandments, and they can easily apprise themselves of the seven no laws if they look it up. No idolatry, and no blasphemy. And this and these two prohibitions are are key in blowing down the house of cards that is Christianity. And okay, you may not wish to do this. I don't know how you feel towards Christianity, but psychologically, I think white people have to give up on Christianity before they'll move over to Islam. And I know you don't want that to happen, but I'm saying life will be better, even for gay people, because there will at least be the rule of law. There will be, the rule of law that protects everyone, even gay people, from being victims of crime and arbitrary justice and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I don't know what you're doing, but I
You,
can hear it,
oh, okay. I was.
the brushing. Um,
Okay, I'll stop.
um, but okay. So I mean, what I wanted to say about, I guess spirituality. I think spirituality just means when, oh, I feel like God is smiling on me. I am in nature and I'm with one. At one with God, and all the sort of spiritual feelings that people might get when they are, you know, communing with God or nature, or high on drugs or whatever it is that gets them this feeling. And I think, people take drugs in order to recreate that feeling, and then they become addicted. And that, I think, is the problem. So I am a little concerned about you. I don't, I
Well,
don't
it
think.
doesn't go on forever. It's not like, I mean, some people need it constantly, but um, it doesn't necessarily have to go.
Okay, it doesn't have to continue, but it could go bad and you could become. But okay, I'm just saying the best things in life are free. The Bible is free, the Quran is free, or you can get one free if you really wanted one. And forming logical conclusions of all the competing information is also free if you want to, if you choose to exercise your mind. And I'm saying, um, well, we must all necessarily be agnostic because, however convinced we are about the afterlife, we cannot prove it to somebody determined to believe in the opposite. But as long as we have the conviction that we are doing the right thing, we will continue doing the right thing. It's only when we're not really sure that God exists that we vacillate, and we say yes and no at the same time. And I'm saying you don't really need to believe in God. I remain agnostic. I'm just saying, it's obviously in the national interest if a country gets its people to believe in God, so they'll marry young, marry early, try to be good parents, stay together for the sake of the children, even though they're bored and irritated by their spouse, whom they find disappointing, and in this way they bring up better quality children than people who, men who just pump and dump women or people who don't even want to be parents. I mean, that is the obvious practical, political, and social purpose of religion. And that explains why most countries, claim to have a religion, even if they practice it that badly.
Well, I mean, there's an official state Lutheran church in like Norway and Sweden and stuff like that, isn't there? Well, they have an official state church in England, the Church of England, which is ruled, by the king. And then I think they have official, I think doesn't each government in Europe have an official religion?
Well, yes. Um, well, certainly in kingdoms, because in the olden days, kings were absolute monarchs, and they could do anything to their subjects that they liked. So when, okay, I don't pretend to have read anything on the subject, but I can imagine if they were barbarian kings and illiterate. How do you think the Catholic Church, the Christian missionaries, would be, bargaining with these barbarian kings? They'd be saying, "Oh, hey king, hey barbarian king, we come from Rome, the eternal city, we come from the place where um, where from whence came the Roman soldiers that conquered your country. The Roman conquest would be something that you know an English king would know about, and they would be impressed because Rome was the eternal city, and they didn't know of anywhere in the world that was more advanced than Rome. So they easily got their way, like, oh, well, we'll help you run your kingdom, king. You can make a position called the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he'll be one of our people from Rome, helping you govern your country.
Well, no, the
And
arch.
in return,
Oh.
Yeah, and if yeah, we know you're a bit backward and illiterate, but we have very illiterate people, and Rome, the eternal city, it's very old and it's very sophisticated. It knows lots of things, and we come from a tradition of a great priesthood, and we're still around. So you better listen to us, barbarian king, and we're going to help you run your kingdom. You know, Or you can carry on doing things the way you are, but we're going to go to your neighbors. And if they accept, you'll be the backward one. And they'll come and invade you and take you over, and you'll become part of Christendom.
Mm.
I mean, well, okay, I can easily imagine the Christian missionaries talking in these terms to these barbarian kings who probably, could only understand, violence. And and I don't think that these barbarian kings, when they decided to convert to Rome, was going to ask, their subjects if they fancied trying a little bit of Christianity to see how they liked it, a trial period or anything like that. They would be told, right, I've changed my mind about our pagan gods. I'm going to be converting to Christianity, and you'll all have to do the same. And if you don't, you'll get burnt at the stake. So you better watch it. And this happened until the end of the 1600s. The last man to be executed in Britain was Thomas Aikenhead, who was only 20 years old. And before 80 years had elapsed, there was the American Revolution. I mean, it's not that hard, is it, to imagine educated men rebelling against this system, being forced to tell lies, or else. So, of course, they rebelled at the first opportunity, which is what the founding fathers did. I mean, I guess Americans might think it was something about the Boston Tea Party and unfair taxes and whatever. But I like to think that the founding fathers did it for the principle of not being subject to this kind of tyranny. And when the American Revolution succeeded, the French thought, well, we'll do this too, because we're sick and tired of our king, who spent all that money supporting the American revolutionaries against Britain. And now we had to pay back all the debt, and the harvest is bad, and we're all starving and poor, and and oh yes, and the first estate, which was the Catholic Church, refuses to pay any taxes, and the second estate, which is basically the barons and who run the army, they refuse to pay the taxes. So the burden of taxation fell on the third estate, which was the commoners. So they rebelled. And then
Mhm.
and then fast forward to the Russian Revolution. That was caused by, well, Russia not winning the war, and the Russians suffering terribly. And they thought, well, liberal democracy might be the thing, but in the end, it wasn't enough for them, and they had to go full commie. But anyway, we know what happened to the Romanovs. The entire royal family was exterminated. So really, in 1918, Christendom ended because not only was the Tsar assassinated, the Kaiser of Germany had to abdicate because obviously he was blamed for his part in World War One, not resulting in wealth and glory for the Germans. So he had to go. So Christendom ended, and you would have thought that there would be historians, European historians, not little old me, being able to work it out. But they didn't. But maybe it's because historians who tell the truth or at least say what they believe to be the truth, like David Irving, are treated like shit. So of course they're not going to be rushing forward to tell the truth because the messenger bearing bad news gets shot.
No, I'm full. Um, well, yeah, it ended around that time, and that's what. Did you know that both Jehovah's Witnesses and Nation of Islam, both of them focus on the year 1914 as basically the end of, not exactly Christendom, but kind of like the beginning of the end of everything. So 1914 was supposedly the last year of like white rule, which does, because that's when World War One broke out, and that is when it all started collapsing, in the West.
Yeah, I'm looking
Um,
up Oswald Spengler's. So I want to know when he wrote his book.
oh, in the 1800s,
The
I
Decline of
think.
the West, 1918. You see, there was this. And then he wrote Prussianism and Socialism
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Nazism and Fascism. But if you see, you know, nationalism and socialism just being attempts to replace liberalism. I mean, obviously they didn't think liberalism worked anymore, so they tried nationalism and socialism. In fact, Alexander Dugin said, we Europeans just seem to revolve around these three things. It's liberal, it seems to be it seems to be liberalism or nationalism or socialism, and we can't get out of this loop. But he's talking about his fourth political theory, and and it's sort of vaguely about the people, but not really racist, and sort of referring to ancestors and also posterity. And I think it could, be also described as a national interest. But the national interest is probably too abstract, So he's trying to say, oh, it's a people, and I think China also has the same idea too, because China calls itself a people's democratic dictatorship, and which basically means the government is supposed to, govern in the interests of the people, and what communists are trying to distinguish themselves from is that they call themselves a people's democratic dictatorship, which is opposed to liberalism, which is called a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. So and saying, oh, rich people, rich people should, not always be the ones, enjoying, the resources of the nation at the expense of the people, etc. So that, I think, is basically the emphasis. It's like we have to look after the people, but it's not it's not exactly a new idea, because of course the people are many and the elite are few. But it's only when you get an honorable, principled elite who care about the people that you get good government. I mean, of course, you can get everything on paper that talks about the perfect government and whatever, but you need the people in charge to actually care about the people. And yes, at the moment we don't have people like that. But I think it's a failure of religion. I mean, the reason why people might act well is because either they think God is watching them and is a policeman in their mind, or they want to they really care about the people and would do it anyway. But just a sort of belief in God is the extra insurance. What if you only pretend to care about the people, and when you think nobody's looking, you're taking bribes and bumping off your political enemies.
Well, yeah, this is
So
the thing is that God is is a social tool to make people feel good and to make people feel good and not get depressed and not do the wrong thing because God is always looking. And yeah, it works for most people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And I think that I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The ketamine's helping me. I mean, I do feel better.
Okay, well,
And I don't have to take it forever.
okay, but I mean, in terms of beliefs, I mean, going back to Yuval Harari, he's saying that people just choose to believe or not. They can choose to make an inference or not to make an inference. It depends on which way you incline. So if you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt, and if you hate someone, you don't give them the benefit of the doubt. But it does matter a lot in terms of the burden of proof in a court of law, because it will be very difficult if you are assumed to be guilty unless you prove yourself innocent. Because under this kind of um, presumption, most people will be found guilty of whatever crime they're accused of, unless they can produce an alibi, I guess. If the charge is murder. So I think most people prefer the law to have the presumption of innocence and for the burden of proof to be on the prosecution and not the other way around. Now, as for whether God exists or not, I think he might really exist. Is I guess my point. I mean, if you're agnostic and you have said you are agnostic, then you're obliged to entertain the idea that he might exist. And if you did believe, then you will get all the spiritual comforts that come with belief. And that is why I think Jews have a more what's the word? They're more sophisticated in resolving the cognitive dissonance, I suppose. It's quite extreme to get Jews to thank God for misfortune. I mean, it's quite a high standard of faith to expect somebody to do that, but anyway, in theory they're supposed to do that, even if in practice they can't. They can't. But and then they have the other requirement of well, they call it knowledge that God exists. It's not belief in God, but knowledge you actually know, and not only knowledge that God exists, but belief that he will act for the best possible reasons, even though you suffer misfortune in the meantime. And this would be backed up by the story of Job, I suppose. Have you read the book of Job?
Yes. Yeah, I read the whole Bible. I too many times. You know what I mean? I mean, I mean, okay, so
What
the
did you
way
think of the book of Job?
well, I can't remember everything about it to be honest, but
Mm-hmm.
I know wasn't he the one he didn't really want to go, and then
That's Jonah. He didn't
oh,
want to
that's
go to Nineveh,
yeah.
and then
Oh,
he didn't
Job was
like
the
them.
Job was
He
the
was a good
one.
man, and he was
Yeah, and then he
afflicted
got
by
tested.
misfortune. He didn't do anything wrong. He had a really annoying wife who would tell him
I don't think.
things like
Oh,
"curse
that's
God and die," and he was
yeah.
afflicted with all his children died. He was rich and he had many children, and then he lost his fortune and his children, and he was afflicted with boils. You know, but he never lost his faith in God, and in the end he was restored. That's the story of Job. But oh yeah, he also had to endure, his annoying friends who came and sat with him and said he must have done something wrong. I haven't read it myself. I mean, I did try, but I'm not saying it was boring, but I just never. I get easily distracted, I suppose.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
I mean, yeah, I don't know why, God would, do that to someone who was so
to make a
loyal.
point.
Yes, well, on whose at whose expense? And, I mean, what was it? 12 children had to die for this little experiment. I mean, 12 children had to be murdered, whatever the number of children he had.
Well, I suppose if you believe in reincarnation, as ultra-Orthodox Jews are allowed to do, then you'll say, well, they probably sinned or something, and then they had to die. I mean, Rabbi Mizrahi says things like, oh, if you're disabled or suffer from Down syndrome, etc., you probably did something bad in your next life, and whatever. So, I mean, it makes sense. I'm saying within this value system and belief system and narrative, it makes sense. So,
I'm,
so, so the
I'm,
problem of evil is addressed by saying, well, God moves in mysterious ways. God knows, but you don't. But don't presume to think you do, or you'll make the wrong decision. Or what you have to do is carry on obeying God's laws, and be humble and have the humility to accept that you're not God. And maybe when your expectations are dampened to this level, you're you know you're better able to achieve happiness, because you just be content that nothing too bad has happened, and you'd also be more prepared to do the right thing, which will.
have you heard of Gilgul? This is the reincarnation in Judaism.
No,
Kabbalistic,
no, do tell.
Gilgul. Look it up. I'm at the Wikipedia page now.
Hmm.
Uh, Gilgul. I mean, it's just basically reincarnation, and but they have a word for it. But I mean, yes, these are just nice, convenient excuses that 12 children had to die because they were bad in a previous life, and I don't even know how they died. And I yeah, how do 12 children die? It must have been a disease or something. I mean, or whatever it was that made them drop dead. All 12 of them. Wait, how many children did Job? I thought he had 12. Job had 14 sons and 6 daughters.
Hmm.
7 sons. Oh, 7 sons and 3 daughters, and then he got more.
Hmm. Yeah, he got
Implying,
more.
oh, here they're asking if Job's wife came back to him. So Job's wife didn't die.
Now, I remember that she was very annoying. Or he got a new wife, I think, or the old one died. Because she was the one who basically, rubbed salt in the wound, and said, you should just curse God and die. But the point is, before the story started, it was basically God and Satan making a bet, and Satan, and Satan was saying, well, here is Job. He's got everything he wants, children, wealth, and the Satan and Satan said, well, if he didn't get what he wanted, will he be praying and praising you? And I guess God said, "Want to bet?" And that is one of the reasons why Jews are saying, you know, have always said that Satan and God work hand in glove. That Satan is basically the agent provocateur, or the prosecuting counsel of God. His job is to test the ability of people to tell the difference between good and evil. And that is really the purpose of evil. I mean, it's all like, well, if the purpose of our existence is that this life is an examination hall, then I mean, obviously there's going to be good and evil for us to tell the difference between.
What is Bubblegum Gum talking about? He's saying that Satan won the bet with Job and that Job cursed God. I don't know what he's talking about. I've never heard anything like that.
Well, his wife told Job to curse God and die, but he didn't. I mean, that's the point. Job didn't. He just carried on believing in God and praying.
Yes. Yeah, he kept going, but also I also think that this idea that your life is bad because of your previous life is very cruel, and also I know a lot of times it negates people's desire to help people. You know what I mean? Because I mean, sometimes you see that in Hinduism where it's not always, but a lot of them don't believe in helping the poor because they did something wrong in their previous life and all these other kinds of things. And I could see how, if you're in Orthodox Judaism and you believe your child is sick because of, previous misdeeds, and, then
Well, whether
that's,
you believe in that or not, hopefully you love your child and will try to help him. And if um I'm sure they say, it may be that these people have led a bad life, but you will get a blessing if you are charitable. So, they're not supposed to, step over, the bodies of the ill and dying and whatever.
yes, but I do think it's cruel to tell people that they're suffering because of previous misdeeds. I know people in Hinduism who are very hurt by those accusations because they were very nice people. I find it very hard to believe. Here's why I don't believe in reincarnation, because I find it hard to believe that people who are very kind and very good have horrible lives, and the idea that they were horrible people in their past lives and now they're born so good and nice doesn't make sense. And then there's people who have immense wealth and power and they're assholes, and I refuse to believe that they got immense wealth and power because they were so divine their whole existence, and then in this existence they just turned into a piece of shit. It just it doesn't make sense.
Well, I think the idea is that there will be, each soul that has a particular lesson to learn. So you might not even learn your lesson in the next life. You might just repeat the same thing. So so the next life will be about making you learn your lesson, and you'll have to keep repeating it until you finally get it. Maybe it's a snakes and ladder game.
Yes, you could just make all these things up. I mean, well, I know, I was taught not to believe in reincarnation, because the Bible does say man is appointed once to live and to die. And, we were taught to avoid reincarnation. So, and I mean, the thing about the Jehovah's Witness ideology and all of these, I think even more, well, Mormonism is a little bit different, but there is no hell. You don't burn in hell. You just, if you don't follow God's will, then you just cease to exist. So that's it. You cease to exist, and there's no pain, there's no suffering, and you know, I mean, people say that's not gonna. You're not gonna be very motivated. The point is that you're
No, no,
not
no.
supposed to
Actually,
get.
okay. Here's a way to motivate even people who believe in reincarnation. So, so the name of the game is, you get to, your destination first. So you want to get there first. You want to learn all your lessons for, and learn them, ASAP, because you don't want to be, well, the last one to get in, right? So that would be, how I would rationalize it. And obviously, the very, comically evolved people would get there first. Well, the slower ones would, have to trail behind. But it doesn't mean that, people who think they're ahead should, not be trying to learn, their lessons, because it's all about, reaching a state of, near perfection, I guess. And when you've done all the rounds and learned everything you're supposed to, then you graduate. But
Yeah.
I don't see any harm in people, even Muslims, believing in reincarnation, because there will be all kinds of questions like, oh, so when I get to heaven, what if I get bored, even with the nice clothes and soft furnishings and the water features and the beautiful young men and women who will bring my lovely food and drink to me? What if I get bored? And then I think the answer is, well, you can always, come down again, and if you want. So we get all these um questions answered, and make it more watertight, I suppose.
Bubblegum Gun says that Job cursed his birth, and so therefore he cursed God, and so that's why Satan won the bet.
Oh, but the story is that Job was restored.
Yeah,
He
I know,
was
but I guess
restored.
this is, he said thinking that the creation is evil is cursing God, and so, you know,
I guess he cursed his mother by saying, "Why was I born?"
well, I know. Well, it does make sense to if you question why you were born, then you are questioning God, aren't you?
Yes,
Okay, so then Job questioned God.
yes, but I suppose in view of the terrible things that happened to him, he should be, indulged. But anyway, the point is that he suffered terribly and was eventually uh, restored, because he continued to believe in God, and that was enough to get him restored. But this makes people, ask things like, well, if I guess they think that if they didn't get anything of what they wanted, they would find it very difficult to believe in God. But that's not really the idea. It's sort of, well, you still believe in God even though you don't get things you want, because you accept that now there might be a reason that you don't know, that stops you from getting it.
Yes, well, I'm quite disappointed with Satan, to be honest with you, and that's why I don't believe he exists, because everyone tells me I'm doing his work and he hasn't given me fucking shit. So I'm quite pissed with him if he exists, and I don't believe he exists because he would be helping me, because everyone's like, oh, you're so satanic. Well, you know what I mean? That's just what kind of fucking who would
Well,
worship such.
he's working. If you do anything that goes against the laws of God.
I know, but he's not helping me very much. I thought he was supposed to be able to
No,
give
he's just
me.
helping you get your way, and your way is satanic.
No, he's not helping me get my way. I don't have power or money or influence or anything
Well,
like
but you
that.
might if you might if you do things my way, Vincent.
Well, doesn't that prove your way is satanic?
No, because my ways are in harmony with what God might want. I'm saying, he wants everybody in the world to follow Sharia, and then they'll all be
Well,
happy.
well, there's people who follow Sharia who are not happy and don't have anything, and
Yeah, because
you
they
know,
don't follow it correctly.
no, there's plenty of good Muslims that don't get anywhere in this world. There's good Muslims who have horrible lives, and it's it's obvious that this idea Satan is an imperfect idea, because the idea is that Satan is supposed to reward you if you do his work, and he doesn't.
No, no,
So,
no, no, there was never any deal about him, giving you stuff.
well,
He
the
just
thing,
says, just he no, the reward that you get is that you do things your way, not God's way. And that's your reward or punishment
well, but the
eventually.
thing is that Satan was supposed to be able to offer Jesus all the kingdoms of the world and to be able to have whatever he wanted because it's all at Satan's disposal. The Satan is the ruler of this world until, the coming of Christ, and he was able to offer, him everything. And that's, they always say, oh, all these evil people have all this power because they worship Satan and he gives them all this. Well, obviously I don't think that these Satanists, these rich, I don't think they're doing a very good job at rebelling against God. I don't think, I don't think they're doing a very good job at rebelling against God because they're not creating a system that's really worthwhile. And, I would like to think that
Sorry, who is supposed to be creating a system?
these Satanists, these people that supposedly serve Satan and have all this money and power and all the kings of the earth and everything that are supposed to be Satan's pawns, they're not doing a very good job. And obviously Satan, if he exists, is stupid and incapable and inept.
Well, I mean, the point of Satan is really to lead us into temptation. That's all.
Yeah, well, he's shitty at it and he does a shitty job. And if I were Satan,
You're
I'd
quite
do.
far away from following God's laws correctly.
The point is that he's not a very good um, nemesis.
Well, I think okay, the,
He's not a worthy
the fact
nemesis.
that so much that Western government is satanic should surely be enough of proof of Satan's existence, arguably.
Well, they do a shitty job. If I were Satan, I would try my best to, like, make the world a great place and make everyone happy under my dominion, and so that nobody would want to turn to God. I mean, people want to turn to God because of all the war and all the famine and all these other kind of things. And then, Satan has, it doesn't make sense because, like, what that's just how what is that going to get you? That's not going to get you anything. I mean, so supposedly
No,
Satan is
no, no, no,
causing.
no. You forgot that I said that Jews believe Satan to be God's prosecuting counsel. He works for God. He's like the invigilator.
Well, then God is the one who's really behind all this and not Satan.
That's right.
Well, then
Because
God is to
because I mean
blame for all
there's
the.
a verse in the book of Isaiah, I think, that God created evil. And of course he has to create evil, because if this life is an examination hall, we are meant to be able to tell the difference. So, otherwise it would be stupid. Like, oh, here is a multiple choice test, but you only have one choice. It wouldn't make any sense. So that's why, you know,
Well, look, if God
people
exists,
are
he
things
knew
that
from the
exist.
if God exists, he knew from the beginning of creation that everyone was going to rebel and not want to live his ways. And it's just it's cruel. Why put humans through that? Why invent humans when you know very full well that they're going to rebel and starve and kill each other and all this other kind of stuff? What is the point of that? I wouldn't create a dog to live like that, let alone a human.
Oh,
I
come on.
wouldn't.
Yeah, I think you have fun. Don't pretend that your life is just unmitigated misery from beginning to end. I'm sure you
What?
enjoy something of
But
your life.
but but some people do have unmitigated suffering and starvation and famine and disease, and you know what I mean. And this is just, why would you? What is the point of that? It's just this exercise in what? This exercise in what? I mean, God
Well,
didn't
some
need.
people believe, what was his name? Ultimated Judeo-Christian. Remember when he was talking about Genesis and the act of creation, and he got a bit emotional, and he was convinced that the act of creation was an act of love.
Not if this is
That's what
what
he thought anyway.
not if this is what God had in store for everyone. That's
Well, some
not
people
love.
enjoy their lives. Some people are glad to be alive.
Yeah,
So you
no,
can't
but not
necessarily
all.
say, oh, everybody
No, but
hates their life.
there's no
Some people
point for
do.
all this war and famine and disease and strife and hate and it's just it was pointless to know that you were going to do this. I don't want a God who's going to create a creation knowing very full well that people are going to starve to death. Like
Yeah, but it's
I don't
okay. He's
want to
going to make
worship
it
a
up
God.
to them
I don't
because
want to
that's the
worship a
story.
God. No, well, and why them? And then you have to bring reincarnation into like, and why am I here living in the first world when, obviously I must have done lots of things right in my previous lives to be able to live here in the first world and have food and comfort and all these other kinds of things. And like, what happened? I was such a good person all my reincarnations, and then in this life I decided to reject God. Like, why, how could I get this far and then just give up on it all?
Well, I think you could just decide to believe. I mean, it's all in the mind. What Yuval Harari was saying is that we have the capacity of fiction. We can make up things, abstract ideas, markets, justice, morality, all these abstract ideas that non-human animals can't do. And because we can manipulate these ideas, we go on to achieve great things. Maybe we even conceived of the Abrahamic God, and he's just a figment of Abraham's imagination. But you know, and it came without any, effort apart from thinking. And this is what it has developed into. It became scripture, and then it became, more scripture. It became laws and systems of morality, and then it became a system of problem solving. And what I like about it is that it's so obvious, really. It's like, well, if you believe in God and you think suffering is punishment for sin, then when you suffer, what should you do? What's the answer?
Yeah, but people want to know why, you know what I mean? The
Yeah,
thing is
yeah,
that,
yeah. It hurts because you did something wrong. Stop it. Correct
but
yourself.
no, but it hurts because you did something wrong in a previous life. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong in this life.
Well, we, okay, a lot of things, we're living with a lot of things that have gone wrong, right? I think white people in particular are living with with the consequences of the French Revolution, which was a reaction against the craziness of Christianity. And then, oh, they've forgotten all about it. They just think, oh, it's just what, just their lives that they can remember. Or maybe their parents and grandparents, and it ends at that. No, it goes all the way back to, well, maybe Adam and Eve, all the other stuff that we don't know about that unconsciously affects us. I mean, really, the emotions I don't think are anything new. People get jealous, they get angry for more or less the same reasons. They're subjected to the, you know, physical appetites of lust and gluttony and greed. So, in a way, nothing is new under the sun. We just like to think that we're special because we live in our particular time, which will also come to pass and be superseded by other ideas and other civilizations. But maybe it's just a way of saying, well, what we what we think are fair enough remain vaguely similar to the no-hide laws.
Or maybe, but I don't necessarily believe that survival is always the best option. I mean, I think that sometimes it's good not to, I think, like And also, I do think that that is a white trait to say, well, it's better not to live than to live like that. You know what I mean? And I think that, yeah, other races just they don't have
Oh.
that. I do think
I'm
like,
actually reading a book on suicide, which is very interesting about how vicious the church was to people who committed suicide. You know, they had to be buried in unconsecrated ground. They would be refused a mass for repose of their soul. They were really quite vicious, and it doesn't even say in the New Testament to be mean to suicides, because and actually the Torah doesn't say anything about not killing yourself. It's only the Quran. But apparently, the idea of being mean to suicides comes from Aquinas. And this book I'm reading is about a suicide epidemic in Russia from the 1860s, which um, which must have been directly related to the emancipation of serfs, because it wasn't done, in an orderly fashion. And this leads on to nihilism, which must have been, loss of faith in their government for Russians, these serfs who, I guess, were, told they had to go and they didn't know what to do, and you know and so they remained in poverty, and a lot of them killed themselves, I guess. I guess when you were a serf, at least you knew where your next meal was coming from, and what your future was vaguely, until they were thrown off the land. And anyway, so lots of Russians killed themselves, and then a lot of Russians became nihilists. And I don't know when Russia stopped burning heretics at the stake. They must have done it around this time. But I'm saying the failure of Christianity has obviously traumatized white people. I mean, that's why they're always fighting wars, and you know, and
yes,
obviously
well,
every time they fought a war, there was scientific advancement which they used to their advantage in acquiring three global empires. But now they are suffering from decline because they no longer wish to um, have children within wedlock. And their uh, intellect is so corrupted that they refuse to admit that this was probably a bad move. Well, these are Chinese are saying, oh, well, our one-child policy, that wasn't really a good idea, was it? We better try and reverse that. At least they're trying to do that. How successful they will be at doing that, I don't know. And also, China at least has a moral system, an official moral system called socialism with Chinese characteristics, in order to distinguish themselves from, I guess, the Russian communism that failed. Is that your canaries?
yes, yes, it is my
I
canaries.
do sing.
Yeah, he's a
They
singer,
sound
my
like they're
little.
doing well.
They sound like what?
It sounds like they're doing well. They're singing quite happily. Are they still fighting?
Well, right now they are. They've been fighting a lot less, but right now they're fighting. So I'm going over to the cage to give them some information about how they need to stop. Um,
Did you say you spray them with water?
Sometimes, yes, I spray them with water so they don't fight. I mean, you
Do
know,
they peck at each other?
yes, and they kind of bite each other, so I have to intervene. But they've been a
Do they
lot
hurt each
better.
other?
They've been a lot better. They haven't been fighting as much.
Do they hurt each other to the extent of blood?
No, 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 no. They just scuffle with each other. It's
Hmm.
ready. It's ready. They scuffle with each other. I mean, they're not violent, but
Hmm. It's not
Yeah.
like they pick each other's eyes out or anything like that.
No, no. Though when I had zebra finches, that did happen once. They got into a fight and one of them got hurt.
Mhm,
So it
mhm,
happens.
mhm,
What are you making it with? Hold on 1 second, Claire. What are you making it with?
mhm.
Okay. Are you have? I don't know if I need any. Are you gonna eat the whole thing? Okay, I don't need any. I don't need any. I ate. Yeah, I did. Um, yeah. Well, Oh.
Are you
Well,
talking about
anyway,
food? Are
I,
you about to have something to eat?
no, my husband is.
Uh, hmm. Well,
Anyway, but but I do only want to go a little bit longer because we've been going for an hour, but let's just we'll go back to the ketamine since that was the name of this. But I don't know. It had a reverse spiritual effect on me. It made me a little bit less concerned about those things, and I do think it does make me think of Carol Balizat because the idea that drugs are sorcery and things like that. Though usually people use it really to connect to spirituality, right? I mean, that's what usually people use it for. But um, you know,
I,
because you get a guide, you get somebody who guides you through it, especially the first time, and it's just something that I did tell him that I just kind of wanted to get away from it and the spirituality and which he seems like a spiritual person to me. I couldn't. He did seem like he had spiritual things up on his wall that might have just been designs, but he did strike me as like a spiritual type of person. Um, and I'm sure that they usually get something of the opposite. But I think there's people that take ketamine treatment that believe in God and are Muslim or Christian, and I think that, they just have bad brain chemistry. And if they've had trauma in their life, they need to open up their neuroplasticity. And I feel as though I have, to be honest with you. I do feel a difference um, today. I'm not craving marijuana. I mean, I would like to have it, just for recreation, but I'm not like, fiending for it in order to alleviate my depression.
but if you smoke, you just kind of. I mean, I can hear it in your voice when you smoke.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that, I'm not going to do it now because I've given it up while I'm doing this treatment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you should. Otherwise, if you have a cocktail of drugs, you won't be able to have the benefit of it.
Well, it's no, but I mean I'm not craving it so strongly and needing it. And I think that obviously there's a biochemical component to that, and it was more than spiritual. You know what I mean? Like it was more than you know what I mean? Like Jehovah's Witnesses do that a lot. I mean, it's not against the religion to take psychotropic medication and antidepressants, but it's culturally discouraged. Like, and I do know Jehovah's Witnesses that abandon their children because they have psychiatric issues. That does happen sometimes. They'll abandon them. Like I know Jehovah's Witnesses that just when their children go into psych wards are just disgusted with their children and just say that it's all your fault and you don't rely on Jehovah enough. And you know what I mean? Which is I don't I think there's I think there's well, I mean Jehovah's Witnesses have schizophrenia 4 times the amount of the population and they're highly religious. And then why do they have so much schizophrenia?
Well, I
You
think
know,
unhappiness is caused by um, cognitive dissonance.
well, what cognitive dissonance do they have? And if anyone, like, what's wrong? Like, according, so look, Claire, Jehovah's Witnesses have a moral system, and they have rewards and punishments for following it or not following it. And so they basically keep the Sharia. I mean, I don't think there's anything Jehovah's Witnesses that are doing that would break the laws of Allah or your rules. And they have
Yeah,
a
but
system of,
under the cognitive dissonance is that they see everyone having fun and them not having the fun that everyone is having, and this causes some discontent and uncertainty. That's
well,
what I'm
that would be the same for Muslims or anyone who's keeping a strict lifestyle. I mean, they would, you know,
which is why Islam is so political. That's why you think, well, everybody, it's sort of like, oh, I'm trying to give up drink. I don't want anyone around me to be drinking or smoking or whatever it is that I'm trying to give up, you know. And so, people kind of push it away like, oh, well, it's a gambling. Oh, it's got to be, out of town in a casino. It's a brothel. Well, it's got to be in a special area. So it's allowed, but, frowned on, and, all kinds of ways of regulating it. So,
well, what I'm saying is
these things
that
are necessary.
there's people who are not religious who are happy, and there's people who are religious who are happy. And I
But you
think there's
can't
people,
tell if they're happy forever. People might be over the moon because they're having lots of drugs and bad stuff. But you don't know what happens to them next, do you? Because you lose touch with a lot of people.
well, I'm not talking about recreational drug use. I mean, I'm talking more about pharmaceuticals and this medical grade ketamine. I mean, I don't think the point of these ketamine treatments is to get high as a kite and have recreation. The point is to basically change your neuroplasticity and change your brain.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I'm sure you know of people, who are very sad, and then they hear some news and it makes them really happy. So
Yeah,
obviously,
but momentarily, no, but there
no,
could
I
be a
mean, oh no,
general.
okay, if you found you'd won the lottery, you'd be, well, more than momentarily happy, wouldn't you?
Yes, but that's not always going to happen. And then sometimes people aren't happy because of brain chemistry and because of trauma. And
Well, the point is that if you believe in God, you should be able to, if you are, not suffering from anything wrong with you, to be able to, go through life without taking drugs or psychotropic drugs, and this is what you should aim for.
yes, but that sounds like I think some people need psychotropic drugs even if they are Muslims who are following the Sharia. I think there are
Okay,
people
I
who,
suppose that the Muslims would say, well, if you're Muslim, you are less likely to be depressed.
well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. And the thing is that there's a culture in the Middle East of probably not using pharmaceuticals and relying fully on God. But, the thing is that, there might be less understanding about depression in the culture. And maybe people used to not admit that they were depressed in the old days. It was kind of viewed, like it could have been viewed that it was, because of sin and because you're not.
Melancholia was a word that the Victorians used, and I think the blues is an American word. It's the same thing.
Yes, well, I think people were less likely to admit any kind of problems in the past. I mean, people used to be, look, when life was hard and,
Well, people were
you,
judgmental about mental illness. They won't marry you or hire you or invite you to their parties.
yes, exactly. So people hid it. And I don't like when people say, oh, people are so depressed these days. People used to hide it. People used to hide their depression. So it's not really, and I would think that in more restrictive cultures like Islam, yes, people would hide it more. You know what I mean? Like, just like, in the Jehovah's Witnesses, there's probably more of an incentive to hide it unless, to the point that you get schizophrenia. Maybe they become schizophrenic because they are so depressed and they do nothing to fix it. and then they become psychotic. You can get psychotic depression.
Hmm.
There's such
Well,
thing
the
as
point
psychotic
is
depression.
for us as individuals to be able to function reasonably well without, you know, taking drugs, whether for recreation or to control our moods. I mean, you said you used to be happy when you believed, didn't you?
No, my depression started almost immediately after we converted. Um, I was not depressed or unhappy before we became Jehovah's Witness. I had a very, you know, I had a very, besides what happened to me with Dr. Martha Welch, there were no like great traumas. I mean, that was very traumatic and very damaging. But I don't remember being unhappy with my life or depressed or feeling abused or anything like that at all. So when my mother converted and she became a bitch, she just she just changed totally,
Hmm.
and you know what I mean? I never saw her drunk. I never saw her on coke. She didn't do it in front of me. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
and I think she would have been a lot nicer and loving to me had she never converted. I mean, it would have been nice if she could have gotten off drugs and alcohol on her own, and had just remained a loving, more loving mother, a more,
Yeah.
just not so scary and, you know what I mean, like terrifying and these different kinds of things. And the only thing, I mean, the thing is that I was very bad in school until we converted. And then all that study program that I had to go through trained my brain to be able to study. And then I started getting all A's, which,
Hmm. Great. So it's done you
yes,
some
but
good.
well, yes, but I mean, the thing is that why can't it, it's just like average everyday society cannot do these kinds of things. They're incapable of greatness, and it's only these minority small fringe groups that are able to kind of really 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 have any kind of like strong, powerful, overpowering, all encompassing, changing effects on people. And I think it's very unfortunate that it has to be that way. And which is my criticism of you, in that you're looking for, a mass movement. And mass movements are always going to be ruled by just common minds, common people that are not fanatics. And even Himmler, I told you, right, that Himmler wanted to use the Jehovah's Witness religion to pacify Russia. Um, and
Mm.
he said, if I could just bottle their fanaticism and give it to the German people, we could take over the world. And so even the Germans, even he felt the Germans were not fanatical enough. And he was very impressed with the Jehovah's Witnesses and how they were so orderly and how they didn't commit crimes and different kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I've also said that maybe Hitler made his lot. He should have taken his chance to convert Germans you know, into Islam. It might have worked.
yeah, but that still would have been a mass movement, like of the masses. Muslims are. I know everyone calls Muslims fanatics, but they're not fanatics in the way that Jehovah's Witnesses are. They're not that same kind. I mean, they're more, whatever. They get angry if you curse their God or something like that. They get angry, but it's a different kind of thing. And if Jehovah's Witnesses believed in taking over the world, they would be able to do it. And the only thing that's holding them back is their backward culture and their inability to get involved in government. And
Well, maybe merge with Islam, it will become a formidable force.
well, I don't know how those two religions could combine because one is very highly political and governmental, and one isn't. I mean, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in any kind of government, not regulation. They don't believe in getting involved. They just don't believe in getting
Well, because I
involved
mean,
in all.
there's no okay. I mean, I know you base your religion on a bit, knowledge of the New Testament, and that there's nothing in the New Testament about rules for the government. So, but if it were applied to Islam, the Quran, then yeah, it would be yeah. Oh, okay, well, I've got to go.
Okay.
I'm glad we had this chat. I think it's good to explore new areas of discourse.
Yes, it was interesting, and I am feeling better.
Good,
So,
good.
yeah, it did something. It definitely did something.
Best of luck.
And I have 5 treatments left, so we'll continue every time I do a treatment every 3 days. We can talk about it.
Great, great. I'm glad. I look forward to our next
Okay.
chat.
Yep.
All right. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.